Good afternoon and welcome to the World News at 4 of VOP TV. I am David Edwin. First, the headline stories. Scientists confirms 2023 as world's hottest year on record. Russia claims Ukraine lost 215,000 soldiers and 28,000 equipment units in 2023 during ongoing war. South Korean parliament passes law banning dog meat trade. And on the U.S. economy, office vacancy rate hits a record high. Now the news in full. Gabriel Attal has been named France's next prime minister as Emmanuel Macron aims to revive his presidency with a new government. At 34 years old, he is the youngest prime minister in modern French history, outranking even socialist Laurent Fabius, who was 37 years old when he was appointed by François Mitterrand in 1984. Mr. Attal replaces Elisabeth Borne, who resigned after 20 months in office. Gabriel Attal, who is currently education minister, will also be the first openly gay occupant of the French top seat. He will now have the task of leading the French government into important European Parliament elections in June. His rise has been rapid. 10 years ago, he was an obscure advisor in the health ministry and a card-carrying member of the Socialists. The year 2023 has been confirmed as the warmest on record, driven by human-caused climate change and bolstered by the natural El Nino weather event. The EU's climate service says last year was about 1.48 Celsius warmer than the long-term average before humans started burning large amounts of fossil fuels. Another analysis from the BBC stated that almost every day since July has seen a new global air temperature high for the time of year. Sea surface temperatures have been also smashed the previous high. The Meteorology Office reported last week that the UK experienced its second warmest year on record in 2023. These global records are bringing the world closer to reaching key international climate targets. A landmark legal case about whether Donald Trump should be immune from criminal prosecution will be heard in Washington later today. The Republicans' former president's lawyer will argue that the office of the White House shielded him from his 2020 election fraud charges. Mr. Trump, who says he will attend, is accused by a special counsel of trying to overturn Joe Biden's victory. The outcome of this hearing could have a huge impact on Mr. Trump's future. The issue is likely to end up in the U.S. Supreme Court in the heat of a 2024 election campaign in which Mr. Trump is favored to win the Republican nomination. Prolonged legal wrangles over immunity could delay his criminal trials beyond November's election, where he is expected to face Democratic President Joe Biden. The U.S. Constitution makes no mention of presidential immunity, although courts have generally supported the notion that government officials will be protected from lawsuits. There is no legal precedent, however, about the criminal prosecution of sitting or former presidents. The World Health Organization CKC, who is coordinating medical teams on the ground in Gaza, says he is deeply concerned about fighting around 3 hospitals: Al-Qasr Hospital, European Gaza Hospital, and Nasser Hospital, which provide the last line of health care in the region. Speaking to newsmen, he warned everyone is seeing the health system collapse at a very rapid pace. Mr. Casey noted that health workers unable to go to their workplace to care for patients because they fear for their lives, they fear for their safety. He said patients and their families are afraid going to the hospital because they may die on the way. Mr. Casey added that he heard this morning because of hostilities around the hospital in Khan Yunis governorate in the south of Gaza, patients and their families are risking their lives to just seek care. Still to come, Italy's Modena holds events appearing to promote Russia's war. This and more when we return after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Italian city of Modena has blocked the use of a public hall to host a private event on the reconstruction of the Ukrainian city of Mariupol, saying it appears to openly support Russia's war on Ukraine. Mariupol, a part of the Sea of Azov in southern Ukraine, was the scene of some of the heaviest fighting in the early stages of Moscow's full-scale invasion last year. It had been almost completely destroyed by shelling when Russia captured and occupied it in May 2022 after a protracted siege. The conference and exhibition Mariupol, according to the organizer's website, Rebet After the War, organized by the Russia Emilia Romagna Cultural Association, aims to showcase the city's reconstruction with invited panelists, including the Russian Consul General in Milan, Dmitry Shnotdin. A view shows a heavily damaged residential building located near Azovstal iron and steel works. 3 people have been reported injured in Belgorod as Russia's air defense downed 10 RM-70 Vampire rockets over the region. This was announced by Russia's official and the Ministry of Defense. The Kremlin says the Russian military will do everything in its power to tackle an increase in Ukrainian shelling of Belgorod. Officials say a wave of Russian airstrike killed 4 people across Ukraine. Still in Russia, the Interior Ministry has put exiled Russian tycoon and opposition leader Mikhail Khodorkovsky on its wanted list, accusing him of spreading false information about the Russian army. According to Russian state news agency TASS, the charge carries a sentence of up to 5 years in prison, the report said. The news agency said a criminal case was opened against Khodorkovsky in September regarding comments he made online about payments for Russian soldiers killed in the war in Ukraine. Khodorkovsky spent a decade in prison in Russia on charges widely seen as political revenge for challenging President Vladimir Putin's rule in the early 2000s. He now lives in London and has frequently criticized Putin's war in Ukraine on his social media accounts. In a related development, Moscow is reportedly deporting Ukrainian civilians to Russia illegally and holding them in penal colonies. Also, there are detention centers without charges, investigation trials, access to lawyers, or designated release dates, according to the US-based Institute for the Study of War. The research group was cited by Ukraine's Interfax news agency as saying that thousands of Ukrainians are treated like subhumans and tortured for opposing Russia's war. Meanwhile, Russia has claimed Ukraine lost 215,000 soldiers, 28,000 equipment units in 2023. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu gave the figures during a conference call with the leadership of the Russian army. Mr. Shoigu said at the instigation of Western curators, the Kiev regime continues to drive its soldiers to slaughter and is looking for any opportunities to replenish the ranks of the Ukrainian army. He added that, of course, that this will not change the situations of terms of military contact, but will only prolong the military conflicts. In a related development, the governor of Russia's Orlan region, Andrei Klitschko, says 2 unnamed aero vehicles crashed into a fuel and energy complex facility in Oral City. How he wrote in his Telegram channel that the fire was promptly localized and the necessary assistance is being provided. The city is located more than 220 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Still to come, Parliament passes law banning dog meat. This and more after this break. Stay with us. The slaughter and sales of dogs for their meat is to become illegal in South Korea after members of parliament backed a new law. The legislation, set to come into force by 2027, aims to end the centuries-old practice of humans eating dog meat. Dog meat stew, called boshintag, is considered a delicacy among some other South Koreans, but the meat has fallen out of favor with dinners and is no longer popular with young people. Under the new law, the consumption of dog meat itself will be illegal. According to a Gallup poll last year, only 8% of people said they had tried dog meat in the past 12 months, down from 27% in 2012. Fewer than a fifth of those polled said they supported the consumption of the meat. The new law focuses on the dog meat trade. Those convicted of butchering dogs face up to 3 years in prison, while people found guilty of raising dogs for meat or selling dog meat could serve a maximum of 2 years. According to the government statistics, South Korea had around 1,600 dog meat restaurants and 1,150 dog farms in 2023, all of which will now have to submit a plan to phase out their business to their local authorities. And to some business stories. A decline in United States consumer inflation's expectations has kept the dollar rally in check on Tuesday as traders reaffirmed their bets for a slew of Federal Reserve rate cuts this year. In cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin had neared its strongest level since April 2022 on growing anticipation the Security and Exchange Commission will imminently approve spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds. The New York Fed's latest survey on consumer expectation showed on Monday that U.S. consumers' protection of inflation over the short run fell to the lowest level in nearly 3 years in December. Senior G10 FX strategist at Bank of America, Kamal Sharma, said in the market it is expected the Fed to start cutting rates. He explained that the market is trying to find its feet in terms of the trajectory and timing of the first U.S. rate cut. Mr. Sharma added that the U.S.-based case scenario is for a soft landing, lower dollar, boost steepening, and that broadly should be supportive of risk assets more generally. More office space is currently sitting empty in the United States than at any point since 1979, according to Moody Analytics, which began tracking office leasing vacancy last year. The surplus of office space is mainly due to the massive shift in how employees show up for their job following the COVID-19 pandemic. For many workers, the traditional 5-day-a-week 9-to-5 office life has been replaced by hybrid work from the comfort of their home. According to the report released Monday, the massive cultural change also exacerbated an overabundance of supply that had been built in the 1980s and the 1990s. Moody's Analytics said the national office vacancy rate rose to a record-breaking 19.6% in the fourth quarter of 2023. That's the largest quarterly increase since the first quarter of 2021 and larger than the 19.3% level reached twice in 40 years. The average pre-pandemic office vacancy rate was around 16.8%. Before we wrap up the world news at 4, these are the headline stories we read earlier. Scientists confirms 2023 as world's hottest year on record. Russia claims Ukraine lost 15,000 soldiers and 28,000 equipment units in 2023 during ongoing war. South Korean parliament passes law banning dog meat trade. And on the U.S. economy, office vacancy rate hits a record high. Thank you for staying with us. I am David Edwin. Do have a good afternoon.